Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Unicorns and Typewriters. My name is Skylar and I'm back today with another exciting booktube video. So in today's video, I thought I would talk about a book that I have read recently and do a little bit of a review. It's a book that I just finished reading and I'm really excited to talk about it more. So one of the books that I was really anticipating for this year, 2022, since I heard about it at the end of 2021, is You've Reached Sam. So it sounded really good to me because it is a contemporary YA novel, but it also has a supernatural element to it. And if you've been watching my channel, you know that I love things that have a little touch of magic or a little touch of supernatural to them. To me, it gives a really cool, magical realism type quality to a book, and I just really enjoy that. The more subtle and the more unsure you are whether what is happening is actually happening or not, the more I seem to really enjoy that. I think I just really like the idea that magic could be possible in our world as we know it. And I love reading books that have magical realism in them. So this book, of course, starting out, it has a absolutely gorgeous cover. And I was really excited when I got it to realize that the bear cover is also absolutely gorgeous. So I was like, wow, that's just impressive, especially on a regular edition hardback. The author is a debut author, which is really cool. There was a bit of a back order on it too after a little while. I actually stupidly waited to get it until it was back ordered and then had a bit of a hard time getting it, and a family member got it for me from a different state, so I'm really grateful for them for doing that for me. Anyway, as soon as I got it, I did read it and I really enjoyed it. So on the front here, of course, with the title, it says, "How do you move forward when everything you love is on the line?" And this book is about two characters, for the most part, Julie and Sam, and it does also include some of their friends and people that are around them, such as Sam's family, Julie's mother, and their mutual friends. The concept of this book is just so interesting because when we start reading, we already know that Sam has died. So Julie and Sam were in a relationship. They had been dating for a couple of years, I believe. She had moved to this small town that they live in on the West Coast from Seattle, and they just immediately fell in love. And it's a really beautiful story, and we get to hear it in flashbacks throughout the novel, how they met, what their time was like together. She's a writer and he's a musician, and they want to write songs together, and she wants to write a novel and he wants to write music, and it's really is quite a beautiful love story just in and of itself. However, when we start reading, we do, like I said, find out right away that Sam has died in a terrible accident, and Julie feels guilty and responsible. So as the book goes on, we find out what really happened, why Julie feels the way she does. But what is so cool about this book is that the whole concept revolves around this idea that Julie decides in a moment of despair to call Sam's cell phone, as many would when they're processing this type of grief and they want to talk to someone. I know people who have done that just to hear the person's voice on the voicemail. I think that's a concept we're all pretty familiar with. And she calls and the unexpected happens, which is that Sam answers the phone. And that concept I just find to be so chilling, and on one hand extremely creepy, and on the other hand it's like everyone's dream who has ever lost anyone to be able to call them and have at least a final conversation with them. But what is really cool about this novel is that it's not just one phone call. She is able to talk to him on the phone. She's able to call him. And there are some stipulations and some kind of problems that arise with how it works and when they're able to talk and how great their connection is or how horrible their connection is. So there's a lot to that. And when I kind of peeked at reviews a little bit just to see what people were thinking before I started reading it, since I got it a little later than when it first came out, I know a lot of people were pretty upset because this sort of supernatural element was never really fully explained. That is true. I think that's worth knowing and worth telling you before you start the book, and I don't think that's a spoiler. This isn't like in and of itself a supernatural novel. It's not here to explain some supernatural concept to us. It's just here to talk about loss and grief and love and family and friends, which I think are just such beautiful topics. And then it's just got this really interesting little like touch of the supernatural. So if you're not really a fan of contemporaries, I don't know that you'll like this, because it really is in and of itself a contemporary. If you like contemporaries and you like fantasy and supernatural and magical things, I think you will really enjoy this. If you even only usually like contemporary, I think you will still really enjoy this. I think that you have to read a book like this being okay with not getting all the answers. And I actually feel like that really speaks to the themes of the book, which is that when it comes to loss and grief, there isn't always answers and there isn't always the closure you're looking for. This book obviously gives us this concept that is amazing, because one would think that if you got to have phone calls with someone that had died, that maybe you could get some kind of closure. At the end of the day, realistically, grief and loss, everyone reacts differently to them. Everyone has to process them at a different speed, and everyone deals with them forever. Like, you don't really ever get to let go of grief and loss. There aren't always just like these little end points where it's like, oh, and now I'm over it. Like, that's not really how it works. And so I really, really enjoyed this. As I was reading it, I did feel like some people would find Julie's character to not be very likable, because she makes a lot of mistakes and she's kind of in her own head. But for someone who's suffering from a huge loss like she is, I really liked that she didn't kind of act perfectly, because I feel like no one would act perfectly. Anyone in this situation would get lost in their own head, would have a hard time being there for others. And so I don't know, I haven't like looked over a lot more reviews since reading it, but if you're the type of person that doesn't like when you read a book and you think a character is really selfish and horrible and you just have like an obsession with all characters being moralistically perfect, then this book probably isn't going to be for you either. But I think it's worth a shot. I really, really enjoyed it, and I really felt a lot of feelings over what Julie is going through in this book. I really related to her character, and yeah, it's a beautiful and cool story, and I just think it's a beautiful look at grief and loss, but also at family, friends, and love. So even if you haven't experienced a huge loss or experienced grief in your life in the form of losing a person, if you've ever had your plans for the future kind of crushed, like what you were hoping for or expecting, this book also, I feel like, goes into that a lot too. Because not only has Julie lost a person that meant a lot to her, but also she's lost a whole idea of the future that she thought she had. And people go through that when they lose someone, but people can also go through that when they get a rejection to an opportunity or when they go through a breakup. So these things are really relatable, and I think it is definitely a book worth reading. I give it like a full 5 stars. I got completely lost in it. I really, really loved it. And I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested. So on the inside cover, they describe this novel as a heartfelt novel about love and loss and what it means to say goodbye. So it says, 17-year-old Julie Clark has her future all planned out, move out of her small town with her boyfriend, Sam, attend college in the city, spend a summer in Japan, but then Sam dies and everything changes. Heartbroken, Julie skips his funeral, throws out his belongings, and tries everything to forget him. But a message Sam left behind in her yearbook forces memories to return. Desperate to hear him one more time, Julie calls Sam's cell phone just to listen to his voicemail recording, and Sam picks up the phone. The connection is temporary, but hearing Sam's voice makes Julie fall for him all over again, and with each call, it becomes harder to let him go. What would you do if you had a second chance at goodbye? So yes, I give this one a full like 5-star rating on Goodreads. I really, really enjoyed it. I think if you like any of what I've just described, you should give it a shot. It's a really, really beautiful book. Let me know down in the comments if you've already read this and really enjoyed it, or if you are now definitely going to pick it up. I would love to hear that down below. And please like this video if you enjoyed watching. Please subscribe to my channel as well if you want to see more content like this. And I will be back with another new video soon. Have a good rest of your week, everyone. Bye.